All right, so Donald Trump is apparently going to be announcing very soon that he is, in fact, going to be running for president in the 2024 elections. And there are a couple different ideas or dates floating around in terms of when he is going to make this official. I've heard some reports that it could be as early as tonight. I've seen other reports that say it's going to be pretty close after the midterm elections, where he's going to swoop in and take credit for what looks to be a potential red wave that is on the horizon now. And as a part of him making this announcement, as a part of him gearing up for that presidential run in 2024, he is starting to throw the first jabs at who I think most people, including myself, think could be his biggest challenger in a Republican primary for that presidential slot. So here we have a clip of Donald Trump at one of his recent rallies where he is basically taking some shots at Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So let's go ahead and watch this. He's going to give us his official nickname for Ron.
Party for the nomination like nobody's ever seen before. Let's see, there it is, Trump at 71, Rhonda Sanctimonious at 10%, Mike Pence at 7. Oh, Mike's doing better than I thought. Liz Cheney, there's no way she's at 40.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, right, he's going through some polling data, I guess, which is always hilarious with Trump because you know that he's using the most ridiculously skewed polling data that he could possibly find, but it's showing him at the top of the list for a potential Republican primary, and then you have Ron DeSanctimonious. Okay, so that's the nickname that he came up for Ron DeSantis. Now, I mean, honestly, I think you could interpret this in a couple of different ways, just purely in terms of, like, the name itself. I honestly don't think that this is his best work, okay? I think it's a little bit of a mouthful. I don't think it's as catchy as some of the other nicknames that he's come up with, you know, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden's, you know, he used the Sleepy Joe name and a bunch of other ones for different political figures that he's had beef with. I don't think that this is his best work, okay? Maybe he's fallen off a little bit. He's been out of the game for a while now, and he's trying to work his way back into it, but let me know what you guys think. Maybe it is a good nickname. I think it definitely fits just in terms of, like, the definition of what the word sanctimonious is. I mean, Ron DeSantis is definitely the type of guy who likes to virtue signal and pretend like he's holier than thou. He just released an ad a couple days ago where he's basically using, like, biblical justifications for his re-election bid and sort of, like, trying to not so subtly imply that, like, God sent him to be a political leader. So sanctimonious is definitely a word that could for sure be accurately applied to somebody like Ron DeSantis. But again, I don't think it's the catchiest one that Trump has come up with. I think you could have had, you know, a number of different other options, but this is what he's going with. So now we get to a little bit more of the actual, like, political consequences or implications of him taking this shot at Ron DeSantis, right? Because up until this point, it's sort of been like a Cold War, like a standoff type of a situation. Ron DeSantis has definitely not been cozying up to Trump as much as other political leaders have been recently. And he's also not, like, going on the offense against him. He's not attacking Trump. He's not, you know, trying to throw jabs at him. And Donald Trump has also similarly not been too aggressive on Ron DeSantis, not taking any direct shots at him, but behind closed doors, we've known for a long time now that there's sort of a little bit of tension between them, sort of a little bit of beef, and so this is Trump sort of firing that first shot across the bow, and obviously, you know, Ron DeSantis is possibly going to have some response to this if this continues on this trajectory, which kind of ties into, like, this delusional mindset that I think a lot of people have, thinking that Ron DeSantis will be able to beat Donald Trump, is because, again, up until this point, Ron DeSantis has been hands off. He doesn't want to go to war with Donald Trump. Number one, because that's a war that he would lose, and number two, because, like, you know, they share a significant overlap in terms of their base of supporters, right? And so he doesn't want to have to go on the offense against Trump. He doesn't want to have to get into that war, again, because he would lose, but also because, like, you know, it's just not the type of candidate that he is trying to be going into the 2024 election, right? A lot of the reasons why some people in the Republican Party like Ron DeSantis more is because they think he's basically, you know, Donald Trump on policies, but with a little bit less of the baggage and a little bit less of, like, the erratic tweeting and shit like that. Obviously, they are very similar on policies, but that's basically the justification for why some people think Ron DeSantis would be able to win, right? He doesn't have the same baggage. He doesn't have the crazy tweets or truths or whatever the fuck. And he's going to be a lot less of a, I guess, outwardly and aggressively confrontational or, have that sort of same energy that Donald Trump has. Now, the problem with that is that, again, not only do they have significant overlap within their base of supporters, but also that's kind of like what a lot of Trump supporters like about Donald Trump is that he does, you know, shoot from the hip and that he's totally erratic and and that he'll, go after anybody and, just completely makes up whatever comes into his head, right, and just says it. That's sort of like what his base of supporters like. So I have no idea why anybody would think that Ron DeSantis in an actual primary contest, unless Donald Trump is literally, locked behind bars or something, why anybody would think that Ron DeSantis would be able to take him head on, have this type of an aggressive war happen, and that, anything would happen other than Trump just mopping the floor with him. So that's number one. But the other outcome of this, which was pretty entertaining to watch, is that this is obviously, again, because they have that overlapping base of supporters, this is already causing a bunch of like internal strife and conflict within the Republican Party. So we got a couple tweets here from some major right-wing influencers and, online pundits and shit like that. So here from Ron Filipkowski, he says, right-wingers are not happy about Trump attacking DeSantis. So we have one here from Matt Walsh, one of the, forefront transphobes on this Twitter platform over here, works for the Daily Wire with Ben Shapiro. He says, also, nice job launching your public attack against the most popular conservative governor in America 3 days before the midterms when we're all supposed to be showing a united front. Okay, so he's obviously not that happy about it. We have another one here from Ryan Saverdra, I guess. He says, quote, from a major GOP donor, you've got Lindsey Graham campaigning with America First Trump-endorsed candidates and hard-right donors supporting Dr. Oz. The only assholes attacking Republicans are Liz Cheney and Donald Trump. So this is another interesting perspective here, that they're sort of starting to equate Donald Trump with Liz Cheney, somebody who has been like aggressively anti-Trump, right? Obviously they agree on like a vast majority of policies, but somebody who has been, outwardly aggressive towards Donald Trump. And now they're portraying Donald Trump as the one who is similar to Liz Cheney and being outwardly and unnecessarily aggressive towards Ron DeSantis. Okay, so there's another interesting take there from a major GOP donor. Another one here from Rod Dreher. He says, what an idiot. DeSantis is a far more effective leader of the right than what Trump was, if, that is, you expect a leader to get a lot done rather than just talking about it and owning the libs. Okay, so there's another interesting point here, which is that, obviously I don't need to tell you guys that I disagree with essentially 100% of what both Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump stand for on a policy sense, but this is another interesting point here where he's saying that basically, Ron DeSantis is not only Trump without a lot of that baggage, but he's also been effective in terms of getting his legislation that he has supported passed within the state of Florida, right? So to some extent that's true, right? He has been able to pass more legislation than Donald Trump did. I mean, Donald Trump's key signature achievements when he was president was like basically a gigantic tax cut for corporations and the billionaire class. So yeah, Trump was not that effective in terms of like getting his major promises enacted through Congress. So it's kind of like true at a substantive level. But the other point that would counter this is that, do people really care about that? I mean, does a vast majority of the Republican base, especially Trump supporters, and he's definitely the biggest leader still, has far more support than Ron DeSantis within the Republican Party. Do they even really give a shit that he follows through on what he said he was going to do? I mean, I don't know. Maybe to some extent, and maybe some people would say, look, Ron DeSantis has passed this and that and whatever. I just don't think that is what is driving people to support Donald Trump, because if it was, then they would have seen his presidency and how much he failed to get done, and they would have jumped ship, but they clearly didn't, right? Because this guy is by far and away the front runner within the Republican Party. So I just don't see that as being that big of a factor in this. But we have another take here from this absolutely deranged conservative, Ian Miles Chong. He says, bad-mouthing the most effective governor who's pushed nothing but conservative wins is a bad look for Trump. No idea who he's taking advice from, but it's bad advice. So this is, I mean, it's kind of interesting just to see Trump be the first person who goes on the offensive, because typically, I mean, if you look back at the 2020 primary, he was typically like a more of a counterpuncher type of guy. He was typically, playing a little bit of the defense or a little bit on the defense and just talking about what he wanted to do and how, rotten the government is and all of that shit. But then if somebody ever went after him, well, then it's lights out, right? Then he significantly ramps it up and he'll say any fucking thing that he wanted in order to, attack that person, right? Even just completely making up, conspiracies about the person. Like there was that one with, I think it was Ted Cruz, where he said like, his dad killed JFK and like his wife is ugly and like all of these other personal vicious attacks, right? But he was never really disproportionately the guy who started those fights, right? He was always on the receiving end, and then he decided to go after them once they opened the door for that. But now we have an instance where sort of Ron DeSantis is the person who is getting attacked, and honestly, as of right now, we haven't seen any response from Ron DeSantis whatsoever to this. I'm sure that like behind closed doors, he's pissed about it, but whether or not he is going to counterpunch against Donald Trump is yet to be seen. But nonetheless, I mean, this is obviously going to be interesting as it continues heating up. We also had Fox News jumping in the game here, and I think that Fox News is definitely an outlet that would probably prefer somebody like Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump, because they would have a little bit more control and influence over Ron DeSantis, I guess, and that narrative, counter to Donald Trump, who basically thinks that Fox News sold him out by not continuing with the 2020 election with stolen lies that he was putting forward there. So there's definitely a little bit of beef between Fox and Donald Trump right now, but they say some conservatives turn on Trump for attacking Ron DeSantis ahead of the midterms. What an idiot. DeSantis is among the most popular and successful Republicans in the country. So that seems to be the general vibe that I've been getting from a lot of conservatives in the aftermath of this. And so because of, I think, a lot of that pushback, just a couple days later, Donald Trump comes out and he basically gives another re-endorsement of Ron DeSantis. So this is him just doing this like typical in, pure Trumpian fashion, attacking somebody and then coming out and saying you're endorsing them and then backing them and telling people to vote for them and just flip-flopping depending on completely where the winds take him. So let's go ahead and watch this clip real quick.
People of Florida are going to re-elect the wonderful, the great friend of mine, Marco Rubio, to the United States Senate. And you're going to re-elect Ron DeSantis as your governor of your state. And you're going to elect an incredible slate of true MAGA warriors to Congress, many of whom are here right now. I think all people of Florida.
Okay, so, I mean, yeah, he's basically backtracking at least a little bit on his attacks, right? He could have used that as an opportunity to go after him again. I think that what he said at the end of that clip should absolutely terrify everybody. The fact that, like, right now, going into this election, we have literally over 100 Republicans that are running for Congress and could potentially end up as senators and, members of the House of Representatives who are just straight up, full-blown, like, Trump cultists, basically, and are complete election deniers, and they're going to be in positions of power. I mean, it's, like, definitely an alarming situation that we are currently staring down the barrel of right now. But I mean, again, just to recap, this is sort of a war that is inevitably going to happen, especially more and more so as we get closer to the 2024 elections, and especially after Donald Trump formally announces his election bid. But I mean, at the end of the day, if Ron DeSantis wants to take on this fight, then good luck to you, because I think Trump, as long as he is out of jail, as long as he is able to go around and do rallies and use his platform in order to viciously attack you and destroy you, then you have pretty much no chance whatsoever, at least in my opinion. But on the other side of that, I mean, you could have Ron DeSantis, I guess, choosing to like postpone his election run until like 2028 or something after Donald Trump as like sort of the successor to him. But also, again, at the same time, I don't really understand why Donald Trump wouldn't just have Ron DeSantis be his vice president, right? I mean, they're both pretty popular within the Republican Party. They're the two top figures. Ron DeSantis would maybe give Trump a little bit more like legitimacy from some of the people who are more hesitant about it. And then, if Trump dies or he decides he wants to retire or after 2024, then Ron DeSantis could just take over. I don't really know what initially started this beef between them, but clearly as we're getting closer to this and we're getting closer to Trump's announcement, this is only going to heat up.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me. Everyone is saying